Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Out on the Tomato Farm. I know it's long, long, long overdue. It's been a while. I think I've got more of a flow down that I want to do with it, so I've got a better idea of what I want to do. But for this one, I'm flying solo. I haven't really arranged anything, and with the way my schedule's been going, it's that way for now. These things may not be all that regular, so when I get more time, I may make them more regular. So we'll figure it out from here. If you've got any suggestions on things, then let me know. But there were a few things that I kind of wanted to, I guess, dial down in a different way and kind of go talk about since I'm flying solo that I couldn't really quite do I didn't feel was a better way to do it in a normal video, and that I can kind of put all bunched together in like this. And there may be some other stuff that comes up as I go too, so I'm not sure how long it's going to go or what all, but we'll see. Oh, the first thing is kind of the Pinephones. So I've been kind of messing with it for a little bit. I mean, there's been a lot of time that it's just sat and collected dust for a good bit, which I kind of feel bad about. So I've kind of been working on implementing that more into some of the stuff that I do and kind of experimenting with different things. So I'm also looking at getting a new tempered grass screen protector for it because the one I put on it, I kind of misaligned, and it's just really weird working with it. But so basically I killed one SD card already, kind of like rewriting over it over and over and over again. But I think I've basically got a few SD cards that I've dialed down to kind of like the ones that I manually switch between. And mostly that is like Arch in like the post-market OS SXMO. And then I've got a couple others that are kind of hanging out. I've been trying to try out Sailfish OS, but it's been kind of weird. So I'm still figuring that out. They do have a Flashit script for it, but it doesn't seem to work all that well. So I might have to go back to finding another image otherwise and working with that. But I'll figure it out one way or another with that one. Oh, so on the eMMC itself, I've got Arch Fosh installed, basically, which is, in essence, the default Arch image that Danktnix put together. And I've been running with that one, kind of. So I've got a few applications on. I've had to reflash it a couple times because of some issues, or I have reflashed it a few times because of a couple different issues popping up here and there. But other than that, I've mostly been rolling with the updates as they come. And it's worked out pretty decently. It seems mostly stable. I do have to do some U-boot flashing, figure out which one I will work better, because it sometimes does have certain occasions where it randomly reboots, and I still haven't like flashed any different U-boot speeds on it to see if that changes the situation. But as I've been messing with it, I have SSH'd over music and a couple other things to kind of mess with it a little bit more that way. But that's kind of one that I'm more familiar with as Fosh. I have an SD card with, I believe, Manjaro Lomiri on it, and Lomiri still feels kind of clunky. I haven't tried the latest iteration of it, I don't think, but yeah. Oh, I might have to flash it onto another SD card. The other thing, so the another I have an SD card with Arch on it as well. So I've got the eMMC and then an SD card with Arch on it. But the SD card actually has SXMO on it with a little bit more ricing than the standard SXMO. And that was possible because Justine Smithies on the Danknix Discord actually created a script to install SXMO to Arch and actually change a few of the scripts that are default in the post-market OS version of it so that it actually works well with Arch. Oh, and that's kind of mostly what I've been going back to now since I've been messing around with SXMO. And there's another guy, Archie, on the Discord that has a UI set up for receiving calls. So for those that don't know, the standard SXMO, basically, in order to pick up a call, you have to unlock your phone, you have to open the system menu, you go into the calls thing and open it up that way. It doesn't get a pop-up that comes up. It does like vibrate and you can set it to do a tone, but other than that, it really doesn't do anything. So Archie's set up basically a Rofi interface that lets you accept or decline the call. And it's kind of a start, which is kind of one of the biggest things kind of holding me back. There are a few things that I think figuring out, switching out a couple applications in SXMO that I might go with would figure it for a daily driver. So I've mostly been between Fosh and SXMO on that front. Lomiri is kind of etchy sketchy right now, but I guess I could really try and figure that out. But I think SXMO is really shaping up to be a really, really nice phone interface. In spite of it being based on DWM, the gestures and everything make it really pretty nice to use because you have like the 4 tags or virtual desktops, however you want to go with it, tags that you can take advantage of. And then you've also got the different layouts that you can use for managing your windows and everything else. So you're not really handicapped by some of the things that you get on a phone. And Justine has actually set up a script that can detect monitor. Yeah, there's a monitor detect script, so you can actually use it in convergence mode as well and take advantage of that external monitor if you're connecting it to that setup, which is a really cool thing to be able to have on your phone. With SXMO, I've had to add some other application detection otherwise for stuff that I've installed, but it works pretty well. Running PyCom kind of slows it down, but for the most part, I've been using it for like music stuff and random browsing, basically, when I've had it right there. I have used the calculator a bit, but nah. But that's kind of why it's mostly been sitting collecting dust, is I've been using my other stuff for that and work as well. So it's got headphone jacks, so that makes it nice too. So the other thing is I've switched to Awesome for my window manager. I've done a few videos on that. There are some quirks I've noticed. Ricing has been between like breaking it completely because something didn't want to work right, or I misspelled something, to having to reset certain windows so that they're laid out the way I like them again. But other than that, I've kind of gotten used to the tags. And so when I went back to BSPWM a couple times, it's like, this isn't very nice. Because I can have tags 1, 2, and 3 open on one monitor and have tags 1, 2, and 3 open on the other monitor, and to not have to worry about like having separate desktops and reaching across everything in order to access things. Because for those that don't know, BSPWM has the workspaces, but you can't really have the same workspaces on other monitors, basically. So you're kind of stuck with like a setup like 1, 2, and 3 on one monitor, then you're going 4, 5, and 6 on the other monitor. And on a split keyboard, that's not always convenient to work around. But I've gotten somewhat used to that workflow, and so now that I've got things mostly comfortable, I think I can deal with it. But there are some quirks that I've noticed. So there have been certain games that I've pulled up and tried to play that have reacted weirdly, that didn't work that way in BSPWM. And that might have to do with some of me having to rework some of the, attributes and figure out how to make those work right. Because I know in BSPWM, certain games would basically go full screen automatically, and then sometimes if I move the mouse outside of the window, I just have to like re-full screen it manually. But in this, I have to do that from the get-go, basically. So like first time I noticed it, it's like I said, it's hit and miss with certain games. Linux native games seem to do just fine and do the right thing, whereas the Wine games seem to be the ones with problems that want to go into a window, tile, or whatever. So I first noticed it with Victoria 2 in Steam. And at first, my full screen hotkey wouldn't work, so I slightly reconfigured it, and now it works just fine. So now I have to full screen it straight off the bat. And it was the same thing when I ran Synthetic, is it just wanted to tile in instead of be normal like everything else. So, and it might have to do with like borderless window stuff, but for the most part, BSPWM has handled that pretty well. But yeah, those are kind of the two main games that I've noticed that with. I haven't really tried any other games to verify that, but it might be something. And it could cause problems with some games, because I don't think some games really like when the window manager does that. Because I know Kenshi works just fine. Some of the others that might have issues, I would think would be something like Skyrim or something, but I'd have to test that out to see. But yeah, those are kind of mostly the quirks, and like I mentioned, going back to BSPWM might not be a thing that's going to be harder, because of sort of how nice it is to not think about certain things, like the arrangement of windows somewhat. But yeah. Yeah, I was working really hard on that. So if you want to see the different portions of the rice, then there are videos on that otherwise. But it's been an interesting part. There are certain things with the whole, as I've been working with Awesome, that it's like I know what I want to express, but not having a good grasp on Lua or really knowing it at all has made it difficult to figure out how do I do that. So having other examples of what people have done has kind of helped, so that I could go off of that and work with that. So like with the IP address thing, it helped with that, which after learning how to do the IP address thing made working with the weather widget portion of it even easier to deal with, because I sort of knew what I was going to do, but then at the same time I didn't quite, No, so I still went back and looked at something else as a reference, and then I took that and basically ran with it from there. Other than that, the gaming stuff, I know I've done a couple videos on Mini Galaxy, and it's pretty basic, like interfacing with GOG for downloading your games. That's really all it does. It has some basic DOSBox configuration, but it has to basically be a Linux native DOSBox. Otherwise, you're basically running a Windows only installer and you're running Windows DOSBox. So if there were some configuration that way, it might feel a bit better, but right now in the state it's in, it does pretty decently. So you can run your pre-command. So if you've got like a Prime laptop, then you can run like Prime Run in the variables portion of the config per game, which is interesting because that kind of tripped me up because I'm like, well, I got to set the variables manually then, but it turns out I can just run a prefix command, and that's kind of what that does, is it allows you to do that, and then you've got the flags on the back that you can run if you need to. No matter how I run it, though, it's kind of ticked me off is that Homeworld's Remastered collection doesn't want to run because it requires that launcher, and it doesn't run very well otherwise because of .NET for some reason. And there has been, I think it's run in older versions of Proton, but the current version of Proton, it doesn't run at all. I had a Proton Homeworld script that I had stolen from somewhere, and for whatever reason, it doesn't want to work anymore, period, with some of the stuff, so I might have to go into an older version of Proton and it might work. But basically what that did is it, in essence, replaced the launcher and lets you pick which version of the game you wanted to run, whether it was classic, the remastered, or whatever, for either of them. And it worked decently while it worked. But hopefully something comes out that allows that to work again, because sometimes I want to go back in and play cool like 3D space RTS game simulator thingy, and about the only way I'm going to do that now is by booting into Windows. And I already do that for Halo when I want to grind for season points, and it's somewhat tedious sometimes, but it's meh. Other than that, I think mostly, yeah, so there were some things that I noticed when messing with Awesome. So there are a few applications I have running in the background, and sometimes I'll pull up like HTOP in order to see like what process is really like running my CPU up really hot, because sometimes I'll hear the fan grinding really hard. And usually it's something like Lightcord or something else, but there were a couple times that I noticed it was basically Awesome taking like 25% of a processor core processing, and it's like, what the heck? And so I ended up going back into BSPWM for a little bit because I noticed that, and then I was looking through the widgets, and I'm pretty sure it was one or two of the widgets that was taking a good portion of that and just like abusing it. So I think switching out like what libraries I'm using for my widgets, and changing how some of the widgets pull their information kind of helped with that a little bit, because I haven't really noticed it that way anymore. Because now most of the time it basically does that for when I run a game or certain other things, which is pretty normal. And yeah, so those are things that I've kind of tried to keep in mind as those things. So yeah. Let's see, there's my rising, the Pinephone. So I haven't tried the K Plasma Mobile, the most recent Plasma Mobile, I don't think, on the Pinephone. Or maybe I have. I might have. The one with the, like, better color selection in the settings I've tried. I know standard Pinephones are now going to ship with Plasma Mobile. It does look more like Android, which for a lot of things is nice. But at the same time, it's just like, huh. Because there's still some quirks that just aren't quite fit right. And so with something like SXMO, when I want to pull up the keyboard, there's an easy way to do that. With Plasma Mobile, it doesn't seem to be that way. Fosh has a button to let me pull up the keyboard when I want. Lomiri and Plasma Mobile don't, which is kind of... I mean, it doesn't feel all that nice. And SXMO also gives you the option to use any other keyboard that you want in place of the standard keyboard that they have, SVKBD. And so you basically put that in as one of your hooks, I believe, or a sim link to it, whatever. And from there, it'll just run that keyboard. So you could install Squeakboard or any of the other keyboards otherwise. I'm not sure if Fosh has a way to do that itself or otherwise or not. The settings aren't that clear. Fosh's settings still aren't like the best and thorough. So that is another reason why I'm still... Some of the others have better settings than like Fosh do. So everything's hit and miss. If you could like take the best of everything and just slap it all together, that would be nice. But we're not in a perfect world. But I'm thinking that I might put Plasma Mobile on an SD card again to see how that runs again, but I might go with Lomiri Manjaro instead first to see how that's improved over time. And I know, so one other thing that's interesting is on the Danknix Discord in the Arch Mobile channel. Someone brought up that like Steam Link, how you can now send an invite link to other people, and they don't even need Steam installed on their system, and they just need a Steam Link app in order to do the play together thing. And someone's like, man, if only they would do that for ARM now. So for those that aren't aware, Steam Link was actually, after they discontinued the Steam Link tabletop thing, what they had actually done is one of the first things they did is they made the Steam Link app for Raspberry Pi. So you could set up your own Steam Link and pay less for it than what you would otherwise pay, I guess, or whatever. But I'm pretty sure Raspberry Pi is ARM architecture. I think what really it comes down to is because the Pinephone runs ARM 64, that's kind of what they're looking at. And it really wouldn't be that hard at this point, I don't think, since it's already on Raspberry Pi to recompile it for the other ARM architectures. But that's something too, because now it's on Windows, Mac, Linux. So if you've got that chunky Linux laptop, you can install Steam Link on it and go from there. But that's what it is. And another thing, so I know GitHub's recently been screaming that like password authentication is going to be like phased out here soon for, I believe, pushing to Git repos. and I'm actually not sure if I might have to go double check on that and see, because I've ordered a Yubi key with the $25 one so that I could use that for where I can. And I know GitHub allows through the web interface, I believe, to authenticate with the Yubi key, but I'm not sure about it on the Git command line. So I'd have to double check on that, but that'll be kind of another fun thing to mess with, because it's also got NFC on that $25 one. So it'll be funny to see what I can get away with. Because there was also, I was looking at the Chameleon Mini recently, because it's one of the things in the Black Arch repos, which is for pen testing and that kind of stuff. And it's basically a hardware device that does NFC, and I'm like, huh. So basically what you can do is you can set up the Black Arch repos on the Pinephone, and then from there, since Chameleon Mini's in there, what it looks like is you can actually take the Chameleon Mini peripheral and possibly attach it to the Pinephone for that NFC ability, which means if you set up your Pinephone right, you could run all your cards from your Pinephone with a Chameleon Mini attached to the back of it for NFC, which would be kind of fun. And then you could also take the Yubi key and authenticate for certain applications on your Pinephone with the Yubi key. But I've kind of been going through various packages and looking at what might be a little bit more interesting to put in a Pinephone applicate form factor for messing around. And there's some other stuff that I found too, like the image.js tool, which lets you package JavaScript into an image file, and it'll basically show up as a valid image, but it's able to run JavaScript, which is kind of scary but funny all at the same time. And then there were a few others. And then I've looked at, there's ArchiveBox, which is basically almost like having the Firefox Pocket or any other kind of sync thing that does notes and whatnot, and lets you self-host that instead, which would be kind of fun, nice to have on the VPS. But I'm not quite sure about setting that up just yet, because of how much CPU I'm probably already taking up with Pleroma and everything else. But yeah, I think that's about all the random thoughts that I've got for this one. Tried to get it to at least a half an hour, and I think I'm close enough. See you all in the next one when I decide to do one of these again.